All right, let's get right into it. I want you to think of your gut microbiome as a super complex biological operating system. You've got trillions of microbes in there, running trillions of lines of code that pretty much regulate everything, from your digestion all the way to your mood. But what happens when that core programming gets corrupted? Well, we're about to initiate a system-wide diagnostic to find out. So the first step in any analysis is always a simple query. Is your internal ecosystem compromised? I mean, are you experiencing system errors? Things like fatigue, brain fog, digestive issues. These could all just be symptoms of a much deeper compromise. We're going to trace the source of that potential corruption right now.
And we've got an initial hit. System alert. A foreign agent has been detected, and it looks like it's widespread in the environment. So let's isolate and identify this external threat.
Agent identified. The system is flagging a chemical signature for glyphosate, which you probably know by its trade name, Roundup. Now, the key to understanding this agent is really understanding how it's designed to function.
Here's the data packet on glyphosate. It's the world's most common herbicide, and its main job is to attack something called the shikimate pathway. So think of this pathway as a vital production line for essential nutrients in plants, and a whole lot of bacteria. And that is critical, because this includes the very bacteria running your internal operating system.
Okay, on to the breach analysis. We know what the agent does. Now let's analyze the extent of the system compromise. Just how deeply has this agent penetrated our core defenses?
The initial damage report is, well, it's pretty staggering. A 2021 study that used bioinformatics analysis found that 54% of the core species in the human gut microbiome are vulnerable to this agent. Let that sink in. That's over half of your internal ecosystem potentially at risk of being wiped out.
And this is where we see a really critical flaw in the system's response. See, the agent doesn't affect all microbes equally. It selectively targets our beneficial bacteria, our primary defense workers like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. But at the same time, opportunistic pathogens like Salmonella and Clostridium, they're often resistant. They survive. And with all their competition eliminated, they can absolutely thrive, creating this state of imbalance that we call dysbiosis.
The raw data log from key studies just confirms this. Muntz and his team verified that 54% vulnerability. Then, a 2023 study in Science of the Total Environment found that this disruption happens even at doses that regulators have deemed safe. And that's the crucial point here. It's not about some massive acute poisoning event. It's about a low-level chronic system corruption happening over time.
A breach in one system almost never stays contained. And that's what we're seeing here. We are now tracking a cascade failure, as the initial gut compromise starts triggering downstream errors in other critical bodily systems.
Our diagnostics are now analyzing hepatic tissue, and that's your liver. And yeah, significant damage is being detected. The link between gut health and liver health is incredibly direct. When your gut's firewall is breached, the liver is that next line of defense, and it is taking some heavy fire.
And these are the findings from a huge King's College London study. At doses that are considered regulatory relevant, researchers saw a statistically significant increase in fatty liver disease. They found evidence of actual liver cell death, and they confirmed a link to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD. This tells us the damage has moved way beyond the initial breach site and is now affecting core hardware.
So this brings us to the next level of our analysis, the gut mitochondria axis. Just think of mitochondria as the tiny power plants for your cells. This quote here highlights something really important. Your gut microbes are in constant communication with those power plants, and they're regulating their energy output.
So what happens when that communication line is cut? When the microbiome is depleted? While research shows that ATP production, that's the actual energy currency of your cells, can drop by as much as 40%. This is a system-wide energy crisis. It explains symptoms like chronic fatigue and brain fog. Your entire power grid is failing.
Okay, analysis of the breach and the cascade failure is now complete. So we're going to pivot to the solution. Let's initiate the decontamination and recovery protocol, which is based on established mechanisms for restoring biological systems.
The protocol is a clear three-step process. First, decontamination. We have to trap and remove the foreign agent. Second, system restore. We're going to rebuild the microbiome using something called the three-biotic symphony. And third, we have to reduce future exposure, and studies show us exactly how that can be done. Let's take a closer look at Step 1, decontamination. We use agents called binders, and what they do is they absorb or trap toxins in the gut so they can be safely removed from your system. Studies show materials like modified zeolites have a really high capacity for glyphosate, while activated charcoal can sequester all sorts of other toxins. The objective here is simple: create a clean slate. Stop the ongoing damage before we even think about rebuilding.
All right, on to step 2, the 3-biotic symphony. This is not just about popping a probiotic pill. It's a truly synergistic approach. Prebiotics, they act as the fertilizer, feeding the good bacteria. Probiotics are the workers themselves, the live strains that actually repopulate the ecosystem. And then you have postbiotics, which are like the medicine. These are the beneficial compounds, like butyrate, that those workers produce. They directly fuel your cells and repair your power grid.
Now, a crucial part of any recovery protocol is monitoring. You can think of this as your user interface. Things like the RISE method trackers allow you to log your symptoms and track your habits. This gives you real-time data on your own system's recovery, and it turns all that abstract data into really actionable feedback. It's how you track your progress from system correction all the way to system optimization.
So, let's compile our final report. We've identified the threat, we've analyzed the damage, and we've outlined a comprehensive recovery protocol. Here is the executive summary.
Here's how all these components work together in synergy. The binders stop the attack. The prebiotics and probiotics rebuild your defenses and they seal the breach. And the postbiotics get your power plants back online, restoring that crucial cellular energy. See how each step addresses a very specific part of the cascade failure we identified earlier?
Diagnostic complete, we've laid out the data, the analysis, and the potential protocol. The system is now awaiting your input. The next command is yours. And of course, with any kind of system-level change, it is absolutely essential that you consult a qualified healthcare professional before you execute any new health protocols.